You know, there's a specific version of history we all learn in school. It's the statue in the park version. Everything is solid, marble, and just inevitable.
The sanitized view.
Yeah.
We like our history clean. We like these, clear lines from point A to point B.
Exactly.
But usually, if you actually dig into the archives, the foundation of those statues is a lot messier. It's made of mud and luck and sometimes some very gray ethical decisions.
And today, we are taking a sledgehammer to one of those marble columns. We're doing a deep dive into the life of Bert L. Stafford. Now, if you're from Vermont or you follow political history, you hear that name and you're probably thinking of Robert Stafford.
Robert is the famous one, sure. Governor, U.S. Senator, a huge figure in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
But today isn't about him. It's about his father, Bert.
Because without Bert, there is no Senator Stafford.
Yeah.
And Bert's story, it's infinitely wilder than you might expect from a guy who looks like a stern librarian in his portraits.
I was honestly shocked at going through the source material on this.
It's a lot.
We are talking about a life that spans from a tiny hamlet in Vermont to the malaria-ridden jungles of the post-war Philippines, and then back to a high-stakes financial scandal during the Great Depression.
It's like 3 different movies rolled into one life.
And the common thread through it all is this intense drive. We're looking at biographical records, legal transcripts from the 1930s.
And historical accounts of the Philippines, yeah. What we see is a man who was constantly climbing, constantly surviving, and eventually faced with a decision that could have just ruined him.
So what's the mission today? What are we trying to figure out?
I think we're trying to answer a question about power. How does a local lawyer become a kingmaker?
Right.
And when the pressure is on, does a pillar of the community protect the law, or does he protect the institution?
That is the big question, because, spoiler alert, there is a bank heist involved in this story, and the way it was handled is, well, it's not what they teach you in law school.
Definitely not.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the beginning to understand the trajectory. Bert Linus Stafford, born December 14th, 1877.
In Tinmouth, Vermont.
Tinmouth.
And for anyone who hasn't driven through rural New England, Tinmouth is small. Even today.
Right.
Back then, it was deeply rural. Bert is a local kid. He goes to Wallingford High School, then the Rutland Institute. He's smart, clearly. He gets into Middlebury College, class of 1901.
And looking at his college days, he's already that guy. You know, the one running the show.
Oh, absolutely. Class president, member of the Delta Upsilon fraternity. He is checking every single box for future solid citizen.
If you were betting on his life in 1901, you'd say, okay, he's going to take over the family farm, maybe run a general store, and never leave the county.
That was the standard path. Stay local, build slow. But this is where the first big twist happens. He graduates, and instead of going home, he packs a bag and joins the U.S. Office of Education.
To go to the Philippines. This is such a left turn. We have to contextualize this. It's 1901. What is even happening in the Philippines?
It's a very volatile time. The Spanish-American War had just ended, and it transitioned immediately into the Philippine-American War. The U.S. was setting up a colonial government.
So chaos.
Total chaos. But the U.S. government had this initiative to establish a public school system there. They needed teachers.
So they recruited these bright-eyed college grads.
Right. They were called the Thomasites, named after the transport ship, the USS Thomas, though Bert went on a different vessel. But the point is, he signed up to go to the other side of the world.
Just imagine the culture shock. He's a kid from the Green Mountains. He's used to snow, maple syrup, and, silence.
And suddenly he's in Manila. The heat, the humidity, the smells, a completely different language, and all in a war zone context.
It says a lot about his character.
It speaks volumes. He wasn't risk-averse. He taught in Manila from 1901 to 1904. That's 3 years in the tropics. It wasn't a vacation. It was a grueling assignment.
And it almost killed him.
It did. The sources are clear. He didn't come back because he was homesick. He came back because he got malaria.
Which, in the early 20th century, was terrifying.
Oh, yeah. We treat it easily now, but back then it was a recurring, debilitating, often fatal disease. It ravaged the American teachers there. Bert got hit so hard that he had to be medically evacuated.
So biology forces his hand. He has to come home to Vermont to recover. And this is a huge what-if moment for me.
How so?
If he doesn't get sick, does he stay? Does he become a diplomat? Does he never set foot in a courtroom?
It's very possible. The malaria grounded him, literally. He returns to Vermont in 1904 to get his health back, but, and this is key, He doesn't use that as an excuse to slow down.
Not at all.
As soon as he can stand up, he pivots.
He starts reading law. I love that phrase. It sounds so, I don't know, gentlemanly.
It does, but it was a grind. Before law schools were mandatory, you apprenticed.
Yeah.
You found a firm, in his case Lawrence and Rutland, and you worked for them while memorizing statutes. It's hard, lonely work.
But he was clearly a machine. He passes the bar in October 1906.
And this is where the timeline goes supersonic. I was looking at the dates, and I actually had to double-check them.
He passes the bar in 1906, and in that same year, he gets elected to the Vermont House of Representatives.
It's a sprint. Most people wait years to build a practice before running for office. Bert does both at the same time. He represents Tinmouth in the legislature from 1906 to 1908.
And he's not done. 2 years later, in 1910, he becomes the state's attorney for Rutland County.
The chief prosecutor. He's the guy putting people in jail. He holds that job until 1915. And the moment he steps down from that,
He becomes the mayor of Rutland,
so from law student to running the entire city in less than 10 years.
while recovering from a major tropical disease, basically.
It suggests he was incredibly charismatic. You don't win that many elections that fast, just by being smart. You have to be a guy people want to talk to.
He must have been a master at the handshake, the town meeting, all of that.
He was definitely a joiner. The list of organizations he was involved in is exhausting just to read.
Freemason, president of Rutland Rotary Club, chairman of the State Board of Education for 6 years.
President of the Bar Association.
Right.
In that era, those weren't just hobbies. That was the infrastructure of power. The Rotary Club lunch was where business deals were made. The Masonic Lodge was where political alliances were formed. Bert made sure he was in every single room where a decision might happen.
He was weaving a web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was making himself indispensable. If you had a problem in Rutland in, say, 1920, Bert Stafford was probably the guy you called, or the guy who knew the guy you called.
And when you have that kind of trust and that kind of network,
You end up guarding the money.
naturally, you become a bank director. And this brings us to the segment where the movie genre shifts. We go from inspiring biopic to financial thriller,
We need to set the scene here. It's the early 1930s.
the Great Depression.
Right. Context is everything. The economy is in ruins. Banks are collapsing across the country. People are terrified.
And if a rumor starts that a bank is shaky, you get a run.
People line up, demand their cash, the vault empties out, and the bank closes forever. Everyone is on edge.
Okay, so Bert Stafford is a trustee of the Marble Savings Bank in Rutland, and the president of the bank is Charles Manley Smith.
Who, just to add to the stakes, later becomes the governor of Vermont.
So you have the political and legal elite of the state running this one bank.
And in May of 1932, right in the darkest part of the Depression, Charles Manley Smith finds discrepancy in the books.
A discrepancy is putting it mildly. The bookkeeper, a guy named John J. Coughlin, had been skimming.
He had been embezzling.
For a while.
And the total came to $251,000.
I ran that through an inflation calculator. In today's money, that is roughly $5.5 million.
It's a massive fortune. For a small Vermont bank, it's an absolute catastrophe.
So put yourself in that boardroom. You're Bert Stafford. You are the former state's attorney. You are a pillar of the law. You just found out your employee stole $5 million. What do you do?
Well, the law is clear. You call the police, you have him arrested, you press charges.
That is not what they did.
No. They looked at the ledger, and they looked at the line of people standing in bread lines outside, and they made a calculation.
They realized that if the news broke,
Marble Savings Bank lost $250,000. The public wouldn't care about insurance or surplus funds. They would panic.
there would be a run on the bank.
The bank would fail. Innocent people, farmers, shopkeepers, widows, would lose everything. So Smith, Stafford, and the other trustees decided that the truth was too dangerous.
They chose the cover-up.
They fired Coughlin, the thief. But they let him walk away.
Yeah.
No police, no handcuffs. They took the loss, charged it against the bank's surplus fund, basically their rainy day savings, and swore everyone to secrecy.
It's incredible. They let a guy who stole a fortune just walk out the door because they were too afraid of the scandal.
It's the noble lie. They convinced themselves they were doing it to save the town. And to be fair, they might have been right about the panic.
But legally,
Legally, it's a nightmare.
and here's the part that I still can't wrap my head around. The cover-up worked. For years. Nobody knew.
From 1932 to 1935 was a perfect secret. The bank stayed open. Coughlin stayed free.
But then, Coughlin got cocky.
He got arrogant. This is the human element you can never predict. John J. Coughlin, the man who silently stole a fortune, decided in 1935 that he wanted to run for public office.
You have to be kidding me.
He announced his candidacy for city treasurer of Rutland.
I'm great with money. Just ask my previous employer. I mean, wow.
The audacity is breathtaking. He must have believed that Stafford and Smith were so terrified of the secret coming out that they would never say a word. He thought he had them hostage.
But he forgot that politics is a full-contact sport.
Exactly. He had political opponents. And this is a small town. Rumors float. Someone knew something. We don't know exactly who leaked it, but Coughlin's opponents found out why he left the bank.
And they weren't going to let an embezzler run the city treasury, so they leaked it to the press.
And the dam broke. The headline wasn't just about Coughlin. It was about the bank. The secret was out.
And the fallout.
Immediate chaos. Coughlin was arrested, convicted, and jailed. The bank's treasurer got a suspended sentence. But then the prosecutor turned his eyes toward the big fish.
The men who hid the crime. The trustees.
In December 1936, Bert Stafford, along with Governor Smith, who was the bank president, were charged with misprision of felony.
Misprision. That's a term we don't hear often.
It's an old common law concept. Basically, if you know a felony has happened and you actively conceal it, you are committing a crime. You are obstructing justice.
So here is Bert Stafford. He's been the mayor, he's been the state's attorney, he's Mr. Respectable, and now he's sitting in a courtroom accused of helping cover up one of the biggest bank heists in state history.
It must have been humiliating. It shattered that image of the perfect marble column. And remember, Smith is the sitting governor at this point. This is a constitutional crisis for Vermont.
But they were powerful men, and powerful men often have a different experience in court.
That is the cynical but often accurate take. Governor Smith went to trial first. His defense was fascinating. He didn't deny hiding the theft.
So what was his argument?
He argued he lacked corrupt intent. He argued that his motive was pure. He was saving the bank, not helping the criminal.
I broke the law to save the village.
Essentially. And the jury bought it. Smith was acquitted.
And once the governor walks...
The prosecutor knows he can't win against the others. Following Smith's acquittal, the charges against Bert Stafford and the other trustees were dismissed.
Just like that. Case closed.
Legally, yes.
Yeah.
But ethically, it's still debated. On one hand, they did save the bank. No depositor lost a dime.
But on the other hand, they usurped the legal system. They decided they were the law. They decided a massive theft didn't need to be punished if it was inconvenient for business.
It really highlights that too big to fail mentality isn't new. We saw in 2008, but here it is in 1932 in Rutland, Vermont. It's the same logic. Protecting the institution matters more than punishing the crime.
Now, Bert Stafford walked away free. But you have to imagine the toll this took on him.
It was immense. We look at the medical records. During this period, the mid-1930s, while the secret was live, and then during the trial, Bert suffered 3 heart attacks.
3? And he kept working.
He would collapse, take some time, and go right back to the office. It goes back to that resilience we saw in the Philippines. He was tough. He refused to let the stress break him publicly.
But physically, his body was keeping the score.
It was. It eventually caught up with him. He died on July 29th, 1941, from a cerebral hemorrhage. He was only 64 years old.
That feels young, especially for someone so active. But while Bert's life ended there, the story doesn't really stop, because we talked at the beginning about the Stafford dynasty.
Right. Bert had married Mabel Rose Stratton back in 1911. They had 3 kids, Robert, Thomas, and Shirley. And Robert T. Stafford is the one who really took the baton.
Robert was born in 1913, so he was in his early 20s when this whole bank scandal blew up.
He had a front row seat. He saw his father navigate the heights of power and the depths of this scandal. And when Robert launched his own political career, he was standing on the foundation Bert built.
The network.
The network is everything. The Rotary connections, the Masonic brothers, the Bar Association colleagues. Even with the scandal, the name Stafford meant leadership in Rutland. Bert had accumulated so much social capital that he could pass it down like an inheritance.
It's interesting. Robert went on to be governor, U.S. senator, a huge environmental champion. But his path was paved by his father's grit.
And his father's ability to survive things that should have destroyed him.
It adds so much texture to history.
It does. We tend to think of senators as these inevitable forces. But Robert Stafford's career exists because Bert Stafford survived malaria in 1904 and survived a grand jury in 1936.
It's all connected. So when we step back and look at the full picture of Bert L. Stafford, what's the takeaway? How should we remember him?
I think he's a realistic portrait of how power actually works. He wasn't a cartoon hero, and he wasn't a villain. He was a guy who showed up. He served his country in a war zone, he served his city, but he also operated in the gray areas.
It's that complexity. He was willing to sacrifice his health for his job, but he was also willing to bend the law to save his bank.
And that's the reality of leadership in a crisis. It's rarely black and white. It's usually a group of terrified men in a boardroom trying to figure out the least bad option.
And sometimes the least bad option involves hiding a $5 million theft.
Precisely.
Before we wrap up, though, there is one thing that keeps nagging at me. It's a real sliding doors moment.
What's that?
It's about Coughlin, the embezzler.
The catalyst.
The only reason we know any of this, the theft, the cover-up, the surplus fund manipulation, is because Coughlin decided to run for treasurer.
That's true.
If he had just taken his freedom, moved to Florida, sat on a beach, and kept his mouth shut,
Then the scandal never breaks. The surplus adjustment remains a boring line in a ledger that no one ever checks. Bert Stafford is never charged. The governor never goes to court.
and the history books would just list Bert as a spotless, perfect pillar of the community. No scandal attached.
It's a sobering thought. It makes you wonder how many other respectable historical figures are just people whose secrets never got leaked.
How many scandals are buried in the surplus funds of history?
Probably more than we want to know.
On that cheerful note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the life of Bert L. Stafford. From the jungles of Manila to the courtrooms of Rutland, what a ride.
A fascinating life indeed.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.